Have you ever noticed how differently that professional artists draw than beginners? And I'm not talking about talent and I'm not talking about skill. It's how pros approach drawing from the start. And here's what most pros do that beginners don't do. And the first thing is they don't wait to feel inspired. They show up whether they like it or not. Beginners usually wait for the right mood to strike, which I used to be super guilty of. But consistency is what actually builds skill. And then pros also work in layers. They're loose and rough at first, and then they slowly refine, whereas beginners try to nail it every single time right away, and that just sort of locks everything up in the beginning. And then they also simplify before they add detail, big shapes and structure first. Then you can add tiny things like eyelashes or fabric folds later, whereas beginners tend to dive straight into the details and sort of get lost. And then they're also using references the right way. They don't just copy, they study, they combine, and they tweak, whereas beginners try to copy a photo exactly or try to go from imagination way too soon. And then pros also fix as they go. If something looks off, they just adjust and fix it, no big deal. But beginners often freeze or start over or throw the whole thing in the trash. And then pros care way more about shapes and edges than they do outlines. Instead of drawing everything with hard lines, they pay attention to how edges transition. Soft here, sharp there, and that's what can create depth. Whereas outlines, well, that's kind of beginner territory. And then pros also think in three-dimensional. 3D, three-dimensionally, they're not just copying what they see, they're thinking how this form works and wraps and turns in space. And it's a huge mindset shift. That's actually probably one of the hardest things to actually be able to do. And then they study their own drawings. They look back, they figure out what worked, what didn't, and they try to adjust differently next time. Whereas beginners usually just move on and hope for the next one to turn out better than the one before. And then pros are also not afraid to repeat things. Same pose, same object, same exercise over and over. It's not a glamorous thing, but it works. Whereas beginners tend to avoid repetition. And that's usually where breakthroughs can actually happen. So obviously there's a lot more things that pros do when it comes to drawing and a lot of subtleties. But let me know what you think the main difference actually is between a pro and a beginner.